Titanic, once hailed as unsinkable, now remembered as a stark reminder of the ocean's power. In April 1912, this massive ship, built with human ingenuity and pride, was swallowed by the North Atlantic. Over 1,500 lives were lost in hours, taken by a force far greater than any one person could control. The ocean does not negotiate. It does not forgive. For centuries, sailors have respected its might, knowing that even the largest vessels are at its mercy. Storms, currents, hidden reefs. These are only some of the dangers that have claimed countless ships and crews. And yet, amidst this vastness, stories of survival emerge, people who defy the odds, reminding us of both human resilience and the relentless, eternal power of the sea. But before we begin, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. I'd love to hear where you're watching from. Thank you all for joining me. Now, let's dive in. On October 3, 2011, 3 young adults left Santa Cruz, California, aboard a small 12-foot aluminum boat, a vessel locals call a tinny. Ethan Miller, 24, led the trip. Ryan Carter, 22, and Lucas Bennett, 20, followed him. Their plan was simple: cross the bay, explore a nearby uninhabited island, and return before sunset. They brought a few coconuts, a small container of water, and their curiosity. What should have been a short, harmless excursion quickly became a test of endurance, courage, and human will. The morning started gently. The waves were calm. The sun glinted off the water. Laughter filled the boat as they joked about who could spot the first seal or gull. Ethan steered with confident hands. Ryan pointed out small rocks in the distance. Lucas leaned over the side to peer at the water below. For a while, it felt like a normal adventure, the kind young adults often take to escape the routine. But by mid-afternoon, the currents had begun pulling the boat further from shore. Fog rolled in thick, muffling sound, hiding familiar landmarks. The waves grew taller. The aluminum hull rocked violently. Ethan tried to correct course, but the wind and tide were stronger than expected. Ryan checked the water supply. Lucas clutched the edges of the boat, and neither knew exactly where they were. The sun was bright, blinding in patches. The fog cold, and the coastline disappeared. Suddenly, the radio reliant on a weak signal stopped working. Static, silence, no connection to the world. Panic began to creep in. They tried shouting toward the fog, hoping another boat might hear them, but no answer came. Hours passed, the sun sank toward the horizon, and a chill settled in. What was meant to be a few-hour trip now felt like an impossible journey. By evening, families noticed the absence of the boat and the 3 young adults. Calls went unanswered. Panic grew as darkness fell. The next morning, October 5th, the Coast Guard officially logged them as missing at sea. Aircraft took to the skies. Patrol boats scanned the waters, but no sign of the tiny tinny could be found. Each day, the search widened, the desperation of those left on shore mounting. Weeks passed, and still nothing. The Pacific seemed to have swallowed them whole. Families held vigils. Candles flickered on the beaches. Prayers whispered into the wind. Each day that passed without news tightened the grip of fear. Community members feared the worst. And by late October, a quiet memorial was held. The aluminum boat and its passengers seemed lost forever. Meanwhile, on the water, Ethan, Ryan, and Lucas faced the reality of survival. For the first few days, coconuts provided food. 1 per day, rationed carefully. Each coconut became a lifeline, reminding them of home and the need to stay alive. Rain collected in containers became their only source of fresh water. Nights were cold, wet, filled with the endless rocking of the boat, and days brought unrelenting sun and relentless waves. Every hour tested their endurance, and every thought had to be focused on survival. As days passed, hunger and exhaustion set in. By the end of the first week, the coconuts were gone. The young adults realized they would need to improvise, find ways to catch food, and stretch the water they had. Then, a small miracle. A seagull landed on the boat. Ryan, hands trembling but mind steady, managed to catch it. They ate it, cooked over an improvised fire of driftwood, or raw in desperation. It was enough to keep them alive. For a while longer, Ethan insisted on vigilance. Every day, they scanned the horizon, looking for any sign of other vessels. They also improvised a signal, spelling help on the bottom of the boat using driftwood, stones, and seaweed. Their conversations were quiet, whispers of home, family, friends, the lives they hoped to return to. Fear and hope existed side by side, one never fully dispelling the other. They marked days in their minds, but the passage of time blurred. The ocean stretched endlessly, indifferent, merciless. But they endured. They reminded each other constantly, keep going, one day at a time. Someone will see us. The help sign remained their silent companion, etched into the boat, fragile but persistent. By the third week, physical deterioration became apparent. Their bodies weakened, sunburn intensified, salt sores spread. Yet they pressed on. Any sighting of birds or distant clouds brought a surge of hope. Any misjudged wave could end everything. Yet they survived. By week 4, their strength waned, but their determination did not. During these weeks, every choice mattered. When rain came, they collected it meticulously. When hunger threatened panic, they rationed whatever was left, keeping morale as much as nutrition in mind. Even the smallest victories, catching a fish, seeing a bird, feeling the sun on their faces, were celebrated quietly. A mental strategy to maintain hope. By the 5th week, they were profoundly weakened. Lucas could barely hold himself upright. Ryan's hands shook constantly, and Ethan carried the weight of responsibility for all three. Their conversations were often monosyllabic, focused on survival strategies, scanning the horizon, conserving energy. Yet, despite the physical toll, their minds clung to hope. Then, on the morning of November 26th, a glimmer appeared on the horizon. At first, it seemed like another wave, another illusion. But as it grew closer, shapes became clear. A vessel, moving steadily toward them. Hearts raced, breaths quickened, eyes strained. The small aluminum boat, battered and sun-bleached, with their help message etched faintly on the bottom, had finally been spotted. Blankets, water, and food were offered immediately. The Pacific that had seemed endless, indifferent, and merciless had yielded, if only slightly. The nightmare of 50 days adrift was over, but the story was far from finished. The moment blankets were draped over their shoulders, and warm water pressed to parched lips, reality slowly sank in. Ethan Miller, Ryan Carter, and Lucas Bennett had survived 50 days adrift in the Pacific. Exhaustion weighed on every limb. Salt-crusted skin burned. Eyes squinted from the sun's relentless glare, yet their hearts, beating fiercely, carried the shock of survival. For hours, the three sat in silence, staring at the rescuers. The small fishing vessel, the endless horizon that had been both enemy and companion. In the days that followed, journalists, Coast Guard officers, and medical personnel arrived to document the incredible rescue. Interviews revealed the depth of their ordeal. The coconuts lasted only a few days, Ethan explained, voice still hoarse. After that, it was rainwater, seagulls, whatever we could find, just to stay alive. Ryan leaned forward, hands trembling slightly, recalling the day they had to drink seawater. It burned, made us dizzy, but it kept us alive. That's all we could do. Lucas, 20, spoke quietly, almost as if reliving the moments could undo them. We marked help on the bottom of the boat. Every day, we hoped someone would see it. Every time we spotted a plane or a ship, we prayed. The help message, faint yet persistent, was the thread connecting them to the world they feared had forgotten them. Each etched letter was a desperate plea, a fragile lifeline that became their salvation. Medical personnel provided immediate care. Hydration, nutrition, and rest were administered slowly to prevent shock. Their bodies were gaunt. Dehydration had left skin dry and cracked. Sunburn severe, muscles weak from weeks of constant strain. Doctors marveled at their resilience. 50 days adrift, with minimal provisions. Yet they're conscious, oriented, and remarkably stable, one physician noted. Their survival defied expectation and became a case study in endurance and human will. Community reaction was swift and emotional. Families, friends, and neighbors in Santa Cruz celebrated the miraculous return. Local news outlets recounted the timeline. Departure on October 3rd. Missing at sea by October 5th. 50 days of search and prayer. And eventual rescue on November 26th. Candlelight vigils, once mourning their potential loss, became celebrations of resilience. Every corner of the community buzzed with disbelief, admiration, and gratitude that the young adults had returned. The teens, or rather young adults, recanted every harrowing detail. They spoke of nights spent shivering in the aluminum tinny, the relentless rocking of the waves, and storms that drenched them to the bone. They described how they rationed coconuts, measured every drop of rainwater, and debated the harrowing decision to sip seawater. Every day became a negotiation with fate. One misstep, a sudden wave, a weak ration, could have ended it all. Yet they survived. They described how fear became a constant companion. Moments of hopelessness came, when no rain fell for days, when hunger clawed at stomachs, when the sun scorched and waves battered their tiny boat. We didn't panic, Ethan said. We tried, every day, to make a plan to survive, to keep hope alive. Ryan added, hope was everything. Without it, we wouldn't be here. Lucas nodded, eyes distant, the memory still vivid. The ocean. It doesn't forgive mistakes. It doesn't care. But somehow we made it. The help message, etched into the aluminum hull, was perhaps the single most crucial decision. If we hadn't done that, no one would have seen us, Ethan admitted. We had no other way of signaling, no radios, no flares. Just a few letters scratched into metal. The crew of the San Nicuñao confirmed that the faint sign had caught their attention, long before the boat itself was clearly visible. A fragile plea, a tiny thread of hope, had bridged hundreds of miles of open ocean. Back on land, the young adults received further medical treatment in San Francisco. Doctors monitored for delayed effects of dehydration, malnutrition, and sun exposure. Nutritionists designed a gradual refeeding plan. Physical therapists oversaw slow mobility exercises. Yet even as their bodies recovered, the psychological scars remained. Flashbacks of the ocean, of storms, of nights without sleep, returned in dreams. Each wave, each gust of wind, was a reminder of what they had endured. Despite the trauma, they found solace in the extraordinary nature of their survival. Local and national news outlets covered the story extensively. Coast Guard reports praised the ingenuity and courage of the survivors, emphasizing how the combination of rationed food, collected rainwater, and the help signal had saved their lives. The story became a template for survival education and a testament to human resilience. Friends and family recounted their disbelief at the return. We had mourned them, a relative said. We had accepted. We had lit candles and prayed. Then, one morning, the news came. They were alive. Across Santa Cruz and beyond, the tale inspired awe. School programs, community talks, and emergency preparedness lessons included the story, emphasizing resourcefulness, hope, and calm under pressure. In the following weeks, Ethan, Ryan, and Lucas gave detailed interviews about their daily survival strategies. They spoke of the discipline required to ration coconuts, of the small, almost ritualistic acts of collecting rainwater, and of the harrowing gamble of drinking seawater. It was a matter of life or death, Ryan said. We had no choice. Every sip burned. Every swallow tested our courage. But we were still alive. Lucas described the emotional toll. Some nights, I wanted to give up, but Ethan kept talking, kept reminding us of our families, our lives waiting back home. Without that, without each other, we wouldn't have made it. Their camaraderie, their shared resolve, had been as critical as any physical resource. Together, they had endured what seemed impossible. Ethan reflected on the help message one final time. It was a small act, maybe foolish, but it worked. It reminds you, sometimes the smallest gestures, the tiniest signals, can change everything. Indeed, that faint etching on the hull, a desperate plea, had carried them from despair into survival. Months later, the young adults had returned to a semblance of normal life, yet the ocean remained a presence in their memories, a reminder of fragility, of courage, of the thin line between survival and tragedy. They spoke at local schools, sharing their story, emphasizing preparedness, resilience, and the importance of never giving up, no matter how overwhelming the odds. And in the quiet moments, when the sun glinted off the water or waves lapped at the shore, Ethan, Ryan, and Lucas remembered the 50 days that had defined them, the ocean that had tested them, and the tiny help message that had ensured their return. They had survived against every expectation, against every challenge. The final lesson of their ordeal was clear. Human will, when combined with ingenuity, courage, and hope, can defy the impossible. The Pacific, vast, indifferent, and merciless, had almost claimed them, but the 3 young adults had returned. Their story ended not with despair, but with triumph. A triumph etched into history, a small aluminum boat, a faint help, and the enduring proof that survival is possible, even in the face of the ocean's greatest fury. And so, the Pacific whispered its secrets, but one story. Their story remained unbroken, immortal, a beacon of resilience, hope, and human determination. On October 19, 1893, the Evergreen Star ran aground on a reef near Cape Flattery. Panic erupted as waves smashed against the hull. Passengers in their nightclothes were tossed into the icy waters of the Pacific. Some clung to lifeboats. Others were swept away into the darkness. Among them were children, tied to life rings by frantic parents, hoping for survival. At least 6 passengers never made it to shore. The vessel vanished from maps, from records, from memory. More than a century later, Ryan Westbrook, a seasoned shipwreck hunter and underwater cinematographer, stared at the churning waters, imagining the ghost of the Evergreen Star lying somewhere beneath the waves. For Ryan and his team from the hit Discovery Plus series Shipwreck Seekers, finding it would be like uncovering a lost world. It's a challenge like no other, Ryan explained. You're not just searching for metal and wood, you're piecing together history, lives, and the stories the ocean has tried to erase. The hunt began long before anyone touched the water. Ryan pored over 19th century shipping logs, old newspaper accounts, survivor testimonies, and weather reports from October 1893. Every detail mattered: the direction of the wind, the strength of the currents, the location of reefs along the treacherous Washington coast. It's like solving a puzzle, Ryan said. One miscalculation, and you could spend months searching the wrong stretch of ocean. Once at sea, the real work began. The team's boat plowed through the choppy waters off Cape Flattery, towing side-scan sonar and magnetometer equipment. We call it mowing the lawn, Ryan explained. Up and down, back and forth, across miles of ocean floor, scanning for anomalies that might indicate a man-made structure. Every blip, every shadow on the screen could be a piece of history waiting to be rediscovered. Days stretched into weeks. Storms rolled in unexpectedly. Winds gusting 40 to 50 knots. Swells climbing 10 feet. Ryan recalled one terrifying day when a sudden storm forced them to retreat. The waves were merciless. The boat was tossed like a toy. We had to run with our tails between our legs. But the team returned, determined to uncover the wreck. Perseverance was their only option. During the search, every lead was scrutinized. Could the currents have carried the vessel north? South? Did debris reports from the 1890s match patterns they were seeing today? Ryan and his crew would sit for hours, beers in hand, poring over notes, imagining every possible scenario. Sometimes you just have to think like the ocean, Ryan said. What would it hide? What would it reveal? And where? Then, after 3 grueling attempts, long hours in a stuffy cabin watching sonar images flicker across the screen, the shape appeared. There it was, the faint outline of a ship, lying silently 95 nautical miles off the coast of Knee Bay, Washington. The Evergreen Star had been found. Ryan and his team erupted in disbelief and elation. Hands were shaken, high fives exchanged, shouts and laughter echoed across the deck. We absolutely lost our minds, Ryan said later. It's one thing to find a wreck in theory. It's another to see it with your own eyes after all this time. Because of the depth, nearly 150 feet diving was impossible. Instead, a team deployed a remotely operated vehicle. Lights pierced the darkness, revealing the vessel's hull, encrusted with barnacles, swarming with fish, yet unmistakably human-made. Portholes, deck railings, remnants of cargo all frozen in time. A snapshot of 1893, preserved by the Pacific. Ryan reflected on the emotional weight of the discovery. It's not just metal and wood. It's people's lives, families' stories. History that had been lost to the ocean. You feel connected. Humbled, the team documented every detail meticulously, sending footage and measurements to the Washington State Historical Museum. Treasure hunting was forbidden. Everything would remain exactly as the ocean had preserved it. The human stories emerged alongside the wreck. Records showed that the only children aboard had survived against incredible odds. Decades later, their descendants had gone on to remarkable lives. Some served in the military. Others became community leaders. Ryan's team traced these family lines, contacting great-grandchildren who had no idea of their ancestors' ordeal. Michael, the grandson of one survivor, described being blown away by the images of the wreck lying untouched beneath the waves. Beyond history and heritage, the discovery highlighted nature's resilience. Schools of fish swirled around the hull, marine life thriving where human activity had once ended. The mast of the Evergreen Star now served as a perch for seabirds, a nursery for fish, and a reminder that life finds a way even in the shadows of tragedy. Ryan Westbrook's journey into shipwreck hunting had started simply with curiosity. A recreational scuba diver, he'd become an offshore commercial diver, one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. He then transitioned into underwater photography and cinematography, chasing the stories that lay beneath the waves. His team's work required patience, skill, and a relentless belief in discovery. Most people will never see what we see, Ryan said, and that's why it's worth it. For weeks after the find, the team continued to document the site, gathering footage, mapping the wreck, and ensuring every detail was preserved for history. They marveled at how the ocean had transformed the vessel into a sanctuary for life, how the currents and time had left the story intact. "It's surreal," Ryan admitted, "to think this ship vanished for 130 years. And now it's here, telling its story, right before our eyes." As night fell on the Pacific, Ryan looked out over the dark waters. Somewhere below, the Evergreen Star rested, a monument to human ambition, tragedy, and endurance. He thought of the passengers, the crew, the families waiting ashore in 1893, and felt a profound connection across time. "We've brought history back," he whispered, "not to disturb it, but to honor it." The story of the Evergreen Star quickly captivated the public. Newspapers, history enthusiasts, and local communities celebrated the rediscovery. The tale became a teaching moment, a story of perseverance, technology, and the human fascination with the unknown. And for Ryan and his team, it was a reminder that the ocean, for all its mystery and danger, sometimes reveals its secrets to those willing to look, to wait, and to never give up. In the end, the Evergreen Star lay quietly beneath the waves, preserved by the deep, dark Pacific. Its legacy endured through the stories of survivors, their descendants, and the modern adventurers who dared to chase history. And for those who saw the wreck on screen, it became more than a ship. It was a symbol of discovery, resilience, and the enduring pull of the unknown.